What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. Every Tuesday, we are here to deliver the mortgage industry's best sales meeting. Sometimes I'm interviewing top producing loan officers. Today, I'm introducing an author, someone that I am excited to learn from, and I know you're going to get a lot of value from. Brent Gleeson, welcome to the Mortgage Coach community, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, I've heard your name from multiple people. Keith Kirby is the one who most recently introduced us. So Keith, thank you so much for this introduction. Right on, Keith. So for those of you that don't know Brett, he is now a two-time author, and today is the launch of his book. Is that right? It literally went live today?
Today is the day, December 22nd.
Embrace the suck. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting knowing that you're a former Navy SEAL. It's going to be interesting to hear the backstory on that, although I'm sure it has something to do with your experience in the SEALs. What was the first book you authored?
The first book was Taking Point, subtitled 10 Fail-Safe Principles for Leading Through Change. Now that book was very much a business book around leadership, culture, employee engagement strategies, basically drawing on some of the leadership and culture principles of high performance and how we can draw those into the world of business to generate higher levels of growth, sustainability, profitability within organizations, and predominantly leading through change. So it was kind of a more modern take on a change management book, but I refer mostly to change leadership, which is more important when trying to be successful in growing or transforming any type of organization.
No doubt. Well, Brett, I think every industry is going through a tremendous amount of change right now, but the mortgage and real estate space, I guess it's at risk of disruption, although I do think local referral-based professionals that adopt technology, they make the changes required, have just a tremendous opportunity going forward. Which book is better when it comes to just embracing change, or what are some of the takeaways from both books?
Well, they're both a little bit different. Obviously, embracing change just in the business world and an organization, even as an individual contributor, manager, or senior leader, Taking Point really drives those principles home when it comes to navigating sort of the murky, uncertain waters of the modern world of business in general. Now, of course, layer in the complexities of a global pandemic, civil, social, and political unrest, economic and financial uncertainty, the burden of command, so to speak, within business and within business leadership and management is even more complex now than ever. But when embarking on this journey with the new book, obviously, first of all, I didn't realize 2020 would, suck so bad. So right. Interestingly, the timing is somewhat perfect for a book. This is a book about not team or organizational transformation, but it has to start with individual transformation. So technically, the book falls within sort of a self-help, self-improvement type of genre. But a lot of what we do with my company, Taking Point Leadership, is around leadership development, business transformation. And you can't enhance the performance of a team or an individual, without transforming the mindset and behavior of the individuals within that team. So that's really the premise of this book. And of course, now it's not just about personal transformation, but overcoming adversity and setting better goals and limitations for your life, planning better, executing better. Debriefing with yourself better so that you can be in a constant state of improvement.
No doubt. Well, I didn't read the full first book, but I wasn't able to read Embrace the Suck because it wasn't out. I did get the book on Apple this morning and I was able to skim the chapters. Haven't got to read it yet, although I can tell you right now, I'm going to read it. But I thought that Embrace the Suck was just so perfect because I've been helping loan officers adopt technology, create new skills and new habits that are modern. We're very big around become modern. And I think the biggest struggle is everybody doesn't embrace the suck. Anytime you learn to use a new tech, anytime you learn a new skill, it sucks. The first time sucks, the second time sucks a little less. And the more you do it, the less it sucks. So I don't know. I just think, first of all, I think this book is going to be huge because the name is so great. We are in a place where we have to embrace the suck. So the only thing I wish for you is that maybe you could have released it a few months earlier, but I think you're going to.
I got a lot of comments around that over the summer. Like, can we get this book any sooner, please?
Yeah, right. If I would have known you better, I would have been asking for the advanced release in June, because that's about when I was when we first went into COVID, I was like, okay, I'm ready for anything, First 2 weeks, I was a little concerned, but then I was like, okay. But by June, I was like, I need some help because this sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into specific questions on the book, because this is your first interview in the mortgage coach community, hopefully there'll be more. Give us a little bit about your backstory that would just be helpful for folks to know in our community.
Sure. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, did my undergraduate education at Southern Methodist University, SMU. Got degrees in finance and economics. And then upon graduation, I took a job with a global real estate, mainly commercial real estate development investment firm called Trammell Crow Company. And at that time, I had a really close friend of mine at SMU who was a year behind me. So he was now a senior. I was out in corporate America and doing the real estate finance thing. And he was one of these young men who had a lifelong dream, vision, journey to become a SEAL. And granted, this was just before 9/11, so essentially peacetime. So a little bit of a different call to service, a different mentality, a different type of vision that these brave young men and women have today. And so he and I actually started training together. For me, it was just a way to stay fit, and for him, help a friend prepare for an arduous journey. But I started reading books about the history of the Naval Special Warfare community, where our forefathers from the underwater demolition teams in World War II to how we cut our teeth as an elite assault force in Vietnam, and of course became intrigued by the mindset and resilience and mental fortitude and level of focus it takes not just to become a special operator, but to obviously be a special operator as part of a team, in a combat situation. And, that really continued to pique my interest, and we continued training together. And I started leaving the office a little bit earlier every day and started working out a little harder every night and every weekend with him. And ultimately, after about 10 or 11 months of doing that, led to the culmination of a decision to engage in some purposeful suffering and give to a cause greater than myself. So I announced to my parents that I was quitting my job, much to their dismay. And he and I then moved up to a town called Crested Butte, Colorado, where we trained for an additional about 5 or 6 months at high altitude to prepare mind and body. And then in mid-2000, joined the Navy, and we were on the speeding freight train from there.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service, man. That is a cool story. Crested Butte is a great place to train. So you picked all the right places. Pretty cool that you had David Goggins, write your preface in your book. So I'm a big fan of his book, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, we actually went through BUD/S together and graduated together, and we were in the same boat crew in Hell Week, and then we both went to the same team actually after that. So.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Right on. That's awesome. So Mortgage Coach community, if you have questions, you can put them live, put them into chat in our Facebook group. I'll bring those into the conversation. So let's get into where we're at today. The people on this call are mortgage professionals. They just got off a record-breaking year. I mean, if you're a loan officer, interest rates are down, purchase market strong. Some people doubled their personal best. Now, they've also never worked harder. They're dealing with COVID. They're dealing with, kids homeschool, businesses shutting down. So, I mean, just casting, but financially and business-wise, the mortgage industry's had a spectacular year. I've interviewed a lot of the top performers on, hey, what's your goals for next year? And so far, everybody's like sustainable success. I realize that the refi market's not going to be probably as great as it is. They're focusing a lot on their teams because, their teams have worked harder than ever. So let's start taking principles from your book and, philosophies that you have and bringing those into loan officers, leaders of loan officers that have teams, production teams that they need to support. I mean, where do you want to start? Like, where do you think in your book it really starts to transition into helping a mortgage professional in today's market?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to take the current time we're in into consideration, within, the pandemic and economic uncertainty and it being an election year. And while granted, many mortgage professionals have done very well this year, to your point, at the same time, we're still in a time of uncertainty and volatility. So, I like your comment about, sustained growth and success, within that field. Really, when we start getting in the book around, proper planning, having a good plan. A lot of us think, well, yeah, I always plan, or organization has great planning, but a lot of organizations aren't really, or even individuals we aren't consistent enough in how we plan, how we execute, how we set specific time-bound goals, and then also how we debrief and perform after-action reviews consistently throughout that meandering path towards success, however we define it. So when we start getting into the later chapters of the book around planning and execution, it really introduces a very similar model to how we plan missions in the special operations community, of having a very, very clear, concise, time-bound goal, whether you want to call it a SMART goal, an objective, or an OKR, which is objectives and key results. But then getting into very clearly defining your resources, the resources both that are at your disposal and other resources that need to be acquired, whether that's capital or people or other strategic imperatives, and also identifying very clearly the threats and blockages that stand in your way. A lot of us, obviously, and we'll get into contingencies in a minute, but a lot of us didn't have a contingency for a global pandemic. Nobody did. There was no plan. This is the trigger. This is where we need to pivot. But at the same time, adversity breeds reinvention. It breeds reassessment, transformation, innovation, creativity, and individuals and teams and organizations in their entirety who have pivoted very quickly, who have forcibly gone through this level of digital transformation, for example, and shifting how they do business, how they interact with their teams or their customers, are going to come out of this stronger than before, and more innovative than before, and possibly more scalable than they previously had been. And so obviously identifying those threats and blockages, applying any possible lessons learned to that plan, and then perform what we call red teaming on that plan, or basically, in simple terms, poke holes in the plan. Have someone else who has an understanding of what your plan is or what your goal is that you're trying to accomplish. Have them ask you questions like, well, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Well, in my experience, you might want to think about this. And then apply those, those gems, of wisdom to maybe adjusting the objective or adjusting your threats and blockages or resource needs. And then you can also take that into contingency planning. So as we continue to course correct and sort of navigate through the rest of this, putting away these phrases like when this is all over, when things get back to normal, we need to do away with those sayings. There's a lot of what we're going through now that's wrapped in permanency. And a lot of it is not necessarily all that bad. Like I said before, a lot of this is going to create a new normal that will fuel business scalability and creativity. And then you have a solid plan. You have to execute that plan with time-bound actions and the who, the what, the when. And then continually as you go, debriefing as you make progress towards the achievement of that goal. So that's one of the things as I start to tie things together in the book, is really around proper planning and goal execution.
Love it. Well, that, guys, you can re-listen to that. You just got a checklist of all the things you need to do to kick some butt. Let's focus on embrace the suck real quick. So if you're listening to this and you've already done some personal planning and what is the number one business goal that you want to focus on, and you have it documented in a pretty clean sentence, I would love for you to share that in our comments right now. If you're watching this in Facebook, you're watching this in Zoom, what is that one business goal that you really want to crush this year? And also, what is that personal goal? And I know a lot of people are going to have goals around health. I want to lose weight. I want to be healthier. But let's just embrace that set, because you just said something like, don't worry about when it's going to be over. Like if you are worried about when it's going to be over, that's going to take, embracing the suck. So let's just spend as much time as you want. And let's drill on that to help people get clear on a goal, get clear on embrace the suck mentality. Maybe give us some exercises so that we can callous our mind, as Goggins says it, and just be tougher and get after it more.
Well, one of the core tenets of resilience too is not spending so much time and energy focusing on things that are outside of our control or sphere of influence. We get trapped, especially when hit with adversity or these life or business ambushes that we did not expect. Oftentimes we get trapped for too long in sort of that causal thinking and analysis paralysis of why this, why now, why me, why my business, as opposed to taking stock of the current situation more quickly, understanding what's in your control, what's not in your control, and then developing that plan and moving more quickly out of that bunker back onto the new battlefield and continuing to push forward and then course correcting as needed. Whereas people with, sometimes lower levels of grit or resilience get trapped in that bunker for too long. And too much time passes, and then the landscape continues to change, and then their situation only becomes a little bit more dire, as opposed to the people who get hit and move quickly through that ambush into a partially adjusted plan so they can move forward.
Would you say that if you are feeling the weight and you're not getting after it and you're watching the news, that wouldn't be recommended? Like put less negative shit in your brain. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah, I think so. Limiting, the intake of things that really aren't going to impact you, or things that will continue to, fuel that, that causal thinking of, what's going on, or is it going to get worse, or what else could possibly happen? Again, go back to your plan, stick to your plan, do the, appropriate level of research and gather the right amount of intel for that plan. But if you're just sitting around watching the news all day, you're getting fed a lot of information that may not be relevant to you, or may not even be wrapped in total truth and fact.
Right. Well, I'm going to just go out there and say, no matter what goal you have, watching less news, consuming less traditional media, it's definitely the path I go. I'm listening to more podcasts. I'm listening to more content that's motivating, inspiring to me. I love Joe Rogan. So, hey, whenever he interviews someone I'm interested in, I'm on it. I don't know most of the people that Jocko Willink interviews, but I love his podcast. I always feel like I come off of it as a better leader and a stronger human. So at some point, I'm going to ask you, we're going to recommend your book, absolutely. But what are some other things that you listen to that help you embrace the suck and help you be a better leader? But let's do a little coaching session for the next 10 minutes. And I think it would be safe to assume that most loan officers, one of their biggest business goals is prospect more and call more realtors. We just came through this refi market where people are calling in, doing refis. And one of the embrace the sucks that loan officers need to do is call a lot of realtors and get back after it with purchase business and prospecting. And that I know is going to be a business goal for a big part of our community. And I also know a lot of people from a personal health standpoint. We didn't, we started COVID wanting to lose 20 pounds. And here we are at the end of the year, and now we want to lose 25 pounds because we didn't execute on losing much weight during COVID crisis. So I know personally people are going to want to be healthier. So walk us through, coach us. What are some things? Don't do this, do this. And if there are some things in your book that you want to make sure we get after, if those are our two goals.
When, take it back to, for example, 2008 and beyond, when the recession hit, my first company out of grad school was a home finding search engine, basically an early version of Trulia or Zillow. And, we'd raised a bunch of money for it. It was, growing really quickly, and we were riding the wave of that bubble to the top, thinking there was no end to the glory ahead of us. And then, of course, there was an end to the glory. So I first started learning about adversity as an entrepreneur and business person pretty early on in my civilian business career. And when things strike, when we get hit with that ambush, especially like in COVID, for example, a lot of us have, in a way, more time because we're not moving around as much. We're not traveling. I used to travel almost every week. So we're not on planes, in the car, in hotels as much, or going to conferences or other types of events like that. So it's really about taking that extra amount of time to not do less, but in a way do more, but just different activities. Spend more time marketing, spend more time building your personal brand, spend more time networking, to your point earlier. Get back to the foundational roots of good brand marketing to open up the doors to continue a new opportunity. Oftentimes we get so stuck in the weeds being busy and business is going well that we put aside those critically important foundational things that create scalability and growth around, whether it's your individual brand or a team or an organization as a whole. For example, my company, we were able to really dive into a lot of the projects, that had been on the side burner because we were so busy with, we're blessed with a lot of business and great clients, and I was on the road a lot, but a lot of really foundational things we knew we needed to do, but we frankly just didn't have the time. And so we reprioritized our list and executed that list in a new way, as far as, getting back to marketing, getting back to creating new content, new curriculum, new training modules for our clients, more video, more digital transformation when it comes to getting better at doing things like this virtually and practicing, rehearsing. So for the individual in this space, in this arena, in this industry, as we all know, it's critical to network. It's critical to pick up the phone, call more, get creative in how you do other types of networking events, whether you need to do them virtually. People are doing a lot of things like that. So getting back to the grassroots marketing and building your brand, building your visibility, and whether that drives immediate new business, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but it'll definitely drive a foundation of scalability, as we continue on into next year.
No doubt about it. So Melissa just posted that her business goal is to become more visible on social media with videos this upcoming year, not only for clients, but also for new realtors. So thank you, Melissa, for sharing that. But that brings up another thing that sucks for people if they haven't done it. Like I've done thousands of videos now. And for me, video was easy because I'm dyslexic and ADD and I can't spell. And so video was like, hey, I've never misspelled a word in video. I love that thing. I just jumped all over it because it was fast, efficient, and I never misspell anything. But some people, video is really hard. It's like, it's almost as hard as getting on stage in public. What are some thoughts or processes people should go through to get through not liking video? Like, how do you reshape your thinking around that?
One of the chapters of the book is that I borrow this phrase from David Goggins is, do something that sucks every day. So that's not about doing the wrong things that suck, but doing the right things that suck. You made this point, as we kicked off, when you're setting new goals or, whether those be near-term goals, long-term goals, stretch goals, there's always going to be elements to achieving that goal, speed bumps, roadblocks, or things that just make us uncomfortable, whether it be getting used to being on camera for video or doing more networking than you're used to doing, or picking up the phone more than you really like to do. Those are the things that suck. But then once you label those things that are critical and important for you to be able to meet or exceed that goal, then you start practicing those things with intention. For example, when we transitioned over to this, I love being on stage and speaking and being in front of clients on site with them or at offsite events for leadership training. But I wasn't all that comfortable, ironically, on camera. I didn't like filming myself that much. I didn't like speaking off the cuff on camera. I can do scripted, I can do, teleprompters pretty well, but just speaking off the cuff, like in podcasts and videos.
Like we're doing right now?
Like we're doing right now. I wasn't all that comfortable with it. So I was like, well, hell, I need to get really comfortable really fast doing this type of thing. So we did it as much as we could. We practiced, even if they weren't real events. I would rehearse with my team. We would set up our own Zoom calls. Now we do Zoom calls for everything, for our internal meetings, external meetings with clients. So I knew that I had to get really comfortable doing that. And at first it was awkward. I remember the first virtual keynote I did. I didn't sleep the night before, even though I speak so much, like 60, 70 times a year, or at least previously had. It's a little slower this year. But I didn't sleep the night before because, in my mind, it's got to be perfect. I have to nail this 100%. And so I rehearsed and I was, I was just really uncomfortable with it. And, it was fine. It went great. But, and then I realized, okay, that wasn't so bad. And then it got, like you said, got a little easier, keep doing it, practice with intention, and it gets easier and easier. And the things, whether it's doing video or the other things in life that make us uncomfortable or having difficult conversations or dealing with upset clients, the more we do it, the more we practice it, those things we get, as we say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then your comfort zone expands, and then those things that made you cringe or that seem insurmountable become normal and part of your everyday life. And then you move the goalposts and you do it again.
No, I couldn't agree more. And that's another thing. So Melissa, thank you for sharing that. But I would just love if there is something you should do, but you don't like it. It sucks. Obviously calling clients, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of loan officers don't like calling new realtors. A lot of loan officers don't like creating videos, don't like doing lunch and learns and getting on a stage. What's that thing that sucks for you or it's hard for you? But if you did it, you'd be more successful. So if you want to share that in comments, whether you're watching this live or you're watching the recording in our YouTube channel, like what's hard for you? And I I think it would help make this conversation, we're about halfway through this conversation. It'd make it better if we could narrow in on some of those things that you guys are having a hard time getting over, but it would also help me in the future content we create throughout 2021. My goal with the content we create at Mortgage Coach, it's really to make you more valuable to the customers you serve, which means making you better. Using your CRM every hour. Like that's a thing that a lot of loan officers, they know they should do it, but they don't do it. So whatever it is that's hard for you, but you should do it, share it in comments. So Brent, I noticed the first chapter is pain is the pathway. And you've got a quote to open it up. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So true. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on one, why did you kick it off? Why was that your first quote to kick off your book? And two, any thoughts on how we can reduce the suffering?
Yeah, I really kicked the book off with, thinking in terms of how we change the narrative in our minds around what pain is, what suffering is, what hardship is. Obviously through reflection and taking stock of the current situation, but also realizing how we can actually reframe the reality of our current situation, whether it be in your personal life, professional life, business struggles, relationship struggles, divorce, or struggles of parenting or social isolation from being stuck at home all this time, and understanding how we can move through that, push through that with intention, lean into suffering or pain a little bit more, the anxiety that we face inevitably throughout our life, and not just accepting it, but finding ways to lean into it and identifying the things we can learn from it. What could we take from the situation? How can I learn? How can I grow? How can I develop? And how can I use that as a pathway towards greater enlightenment, greater insight, and greater personal or professional growth and development.
Love that. So Melissa, really appreciate you raising your hand, throwing stuff out. She said, cold calling is definitely my downfall. I like warm introductions of some sort for a reason, because you're a human being. We all like warm introductions better than cold calls.
Nobody likes cold calling.
Right? I call listing agents on behalf of my buyers once their offer is accepted. Totally, that does make it easier. It also gives more context and more value to the person you're calling. But beyond that, not so much. So I'm going to give my first response to you, Melissa, and then I would love for you to give some feedback to Melissa. So first of all, Melissa, I call it making smart calls. Make sure you've made a lot of smart calls where you have context. Like, have you called all the influential people you know and asked for introductions? Because no doubt, the more introductions you get to people that matter, the easier those calls are to make and the more value they're going to make. And a super smart call. Like, there's context and there's timing. You just got a home and listing, make a call. So I would push you to think of just list, blue sky out, all the smart calls you could make. Referrals, that Jeremy Forcier question, every person that's in process, he waits until they say thank you. They're in process for a loan. Usually when their loan gets approved, they say thank you. And then he, super smart, asks them, I love, thank you. And then he asks for a referral. That's a smart time to ask for a referral. So create a lot of smart opportunities. Yes, they're easier. Nothing wrong with that. But hey, sometimes you got to call a baller. Who is that perfect realtor in your market that you can't get an introduction to, but you just got to start calling them? Any advice there, Brent?
Yeah, it's just I like your philosophy around making smart calls. Having done, it's yes, in a way, obviously, as we all know, it's kind of a volume game, but at the same time, you can reduce the necessity for that volume of cold outreach through more creative inbound marketing strategies as well. And pushing your thought leadership through social channels, for example, so that people start coming to us more as opposed to us having to do so much cold outreach. Obviously, cold outreach has a much lower success rate, for bringing warm leads in or even closing, transactions, as opposed to going back to, the brand marketing, thought leadership, whether that's through blogs or writing articles on LinkedIn. There's so many great, channels and tools at our disposal now. We just have to take the time to use them. And the more you do that, for example, I write I have a leadership column on Forbes that I've had for 7 years. And yes, I have to take the time to do research and create good content. But that's been a phenomenal funnel for us, a phenomenal digital funnel for lead generation. So thought leadership is a good one to reduce that need for cold outreach, but we do have to still do cold outreach. So finding connections, finding, like you said, so it sounds like more of a referral than just you reaching out, or understanding, doing research on LinkedIn, see what personal mutual connections you have that you might be able to draw to. So you have a story to tell, as opposed to, hey, I'm here to ask you to do a transaction with me. That rarely, I mean, we all get inundated with those types of emails and messages through LinkedIn and other platforms constantly, day in and day out. And what do? Well, we traditionally ignore most of them, but through creative, headlines and email, or in your, LinkedIn message or an email, and finding a way to connect with them on a personal, professional level through some sort of mutual relevance, obviously that's going to increase your probability to, have people respond more. So.
Love that. So John Downs, see that you're on the call. Congrats on your success this year, brother. John is, to say he's top 1%, he's probably in the top 0.5% in the country. So John, good to see you in here. Would love to interview you next month or the following month. If you have a question for Brent, put it in here. Would love to know what it is. Before I ask you another question about your book, one more thing that came to mind as I was hearing Brent talk to you, Melissa. One recommendation is, you may have a monthly goal, have a weekly goal on your cold calls that you're going to make, but then turn it into daily goals, and then win by noon. I'm a big fan of winbynoon.com, guys. Todd Bookspan, who's always on this call. I love his planner, but I love that philosophy, win by noon. So Melissa, I would just push you when it comes to cold calling, build your list. Don't just like every day go, oh, who am I going to cold call today? No, you should have your list of who you're going to cold call for the week, and then have daily goals, and then win by noon. Get it done before noon, because that's when it's hardest, and that's when you have the most energy. Anything you want to add to that before I throw out my next question at you?
No, I love that too. And this also goes back to just general, wellness practices, especially with COVID and everything. Like, good sleep habits, get up early, engage in fitness and wellness activities, take short breaks throughout the day. But I'm the same way. I want to hit it hard first half of the day. And then the second half of the day, traditionally, is when I spend time doing more marketing or thought leadership activities, or writing articles or blogs, and then also, to your point, 100%, plan for tomorrow today. Make sure you're ready to hit the ground running tomorrow. Don't do your to-do list in the morning tomorrow, or that list of, cold outreach. Make sure you know exactly what you're going to do, hitting the ground running the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and have, very similar habits, 7 days a week, not just 5 days a week, when it comes to your sleep habits, wellness activities, and even, not at the expense of family or, personal time, but I like to take a little time on Sunday or throughout the day on Sunday to make sure I know what's happening, what we're going to tackle, come Monday. So I'm not figuring out the week Monday morning, and the next thing you know, it's noon, and you haven't won by noon. You've just been trying to plan the week by noon.
I totally agree. So before I was going to ask a question. You just made me think of another question I want to ask you, but I want to put it in context for everybody. So first of all, the man we're interviewing right now, former Navy SEAL, you just see the dude. He's healthy. He's fit. He's got I was going to pull up his book, but I don't have it yet. He's got a upcoming best-selling book, of course, Mortgage Coach. Oh, there it is. Make sure you talk and say that real quick, just so the camera goes on you.
Yeah, Embrace the Suck, the Navy SEAL Way to an Extraordinary Life, with a great gut punch of a forward by my friend and former teammate, David Goggins.
First of all, I love the book cover. It's bold, it's strong, it's attention-getting, and it is going to be a bestseller. So Mortgage Coach community, make sure you buy the book, read the book, and then if you like the book, buy a bunch of it for your realtors. I think it's an on-point topic. I think it's a great conversation to have with your realtors. Bring some leadership. Don't recommend the book if you haven't read it. Like, guys, you got to buy it. You got to consume it. You got to own it. Make it personal, and then bring it to people. So I ask people a lot of times, what are your monthly rituals, or not monthly, your morning rituals? Like, how do you start the day? But I'd love to hear, just if you would mind giving us a checklist of your win by noon rituals. So start in the morning, by noon. What's a perfect day for you?
Sure, it's an easier question to answer now because I'm not traveling. It's actually one of our strategic initiatives of 2020 with my company was to start to gradually get me off the road more, so that I can continue to work on scaling the business as opposed to working on the business, in the business, and being, the continued face of the brand, which is a good thing. But, we have a whole team, and we have a lot of clients we need to think about. And who knew that a little global pandemic would get me off the road? And now my wife's, instead of saying, we need to get you off the road, she's saying, when's your next trip? Do you have anything coming up?
Right.
Because
I know the feeling.
I know the feeling. So yeah, again, going to bed at a reasonable hour, which for a lot of people is not an easy thing to do. So discipline starts the day before, not the morning of, when you're trying to drag yourself out of bed when your alarm clock goes off at 5 or 5:30 or whenever it goes off. And typically, and this isn't just my opinion, but I've seen this through mentors, coaches, and other people's morning routines, is getting up early, hydrating. If you have time or can make the time, at least an initial, some type of fitness or wellness activity, whether it's just stretching or yoga or meditation. If you want to, hit the gym harder later on in the day, I'm more of a midday fitness guy because it gives me energy for the rest of the day. But some type of, early morning wellness activity. And then, of course, all this is hard because, we have 3 kids and we have a baby on the way, literally probably coming in the next week. So these morning routines will shift a little bit on the new battlefield. And then, obviously taking care of the family and children necessities. But, I like to, strap in at my computer by 7 o'clock, make sure I review my to-do list that I created the day before. And, a really fundamental aspect of, what a lot of, successful people out there like to do. I'm not including myself in that category, but a lot of what I've read and people I follow and whatnot, they like to, part of winning by noon is doing the hard stuff first, doing the stuff that's on your list you don't really want to do, just do it first because you got to do it. Putting it off isn't going to help. And so the prioritization of your execution strategy for the day really should front load a lot of the things that aren't the sexiest or the funnest things that you have to do, or the things you're most passionate about. Get them done early, get them out of the way, and then you'll be relieved. You'll have the energy and focus to tackle the rest of your to-do list throughout the day. And I also like I said, but part of winning by noon is also making sure you, take a break. I'm a midday fitness guy, like I said, because it really gives you a lot of energy for the rest of the day.
What time, by the way, what time is your midday fitness?
Usually around noon. So instead of going out to lunch or, wasting
before lunch? Do you do it before lunch?
Yeah, I do it when my wife allows me to these days, but when I have to execute some of that honeydew list these days, since I'm home and available all the time. But yeah, usually around 11:30 to 12:30 is kind of that block of time, and then strap back in, keep crushing the day.
I like that.
Yeah.
What time do you usually wake up? What's your goal to wake up in the morning? What time?
Usually no later than 5:45 or 6. I'm not Jocko. I'm getting up at 4:30. That's the middle of the night. I have to go to bed at like 8 every night, which is impossible. So.
Yeah. Well, I love when I asked you the question, what is your rhythms and rituals to win by noon? The first thing you said is, if you want to have a great day, discipline starts the day before by going to bed early. So I think that's so true. Nothing more important than your sleep and your rest, whatever is right for you. Different people need different amounts. I mean, I need somewhere between 7 and 7.5 hours over an average, but hey, if I only get 6.5, I feel it. And so whatever it is for you, I love that you started with that. So here's the question I wanted to ask you in a few minutes. And remember, guys, we got about 20 minutes left. If you have questions, put them in comments. So this is a chapter in your book, and I just would love to get some cliff notes on this. It starts with, and maybe your values are all wrong. What is that all about?
Well, one of the things that I started thinking about when doing some research for this book is around core values, because we focus so much on the importance of values and supporting behaviors and behavioral expectations and accountability mechanisms with the clients we work with. Even very well-established Fortune 100 companies, kind of taking them sometimes back to the drawing board, whether it's holistically as an approach with the organization or within specific business units, or so smaller groups of people within an organization, is really helping them identify a team charter, as we call it. So yes, okay, we have core values, but oftentimes teams or organizations, those core values stop with the fact that maybe one or two people or a small committee created those core values a long, long time ago. There was no real buy-in or insight from the organization. It's just, values that sounded good or that the brand or individual feels like other people think they should have, but they lack a little bit of authenticity. And they don't go specifically into the behaviors that define that value or the accountability mechanisms as to how will I make sure that I and others live by these values, make decisions by these values, partner with clients based on these values. So if organizations do it, the ones that are well-intentioned, why shouldn't we also do it for ourselves by sitting down and thinking about, what do I really value in life? What can I authentically, literally put on a piece of paper? Whether it's 4 to 6 core values, really no more than that, because they have to be real, and you can't have too many because then they kind of become not so authentic, like I mentioned. But then drilling down, let's say, integrity is one of your core values. Well, then identifying, okay, great. What are the supporting behaviors on how I identify integrity? What are the behaviors I expect of myself and others when it comes to integrity, as an example? And then what are the accountability mechanisms? How will I hold myself accountable when I fall short in that regard of living by that value and making decisions by those values? So oftentimes, first step is we don't even clearly define our own core values. Therefore, how are we making the best possible decisions? How are we limiting our choices? How are we putting healthy constraints, on ourselves to make sure that we aren't distracted by all the quote unquote opportunities and shiny things that constantly, pass by us, and really honing in on making better choices on what we want to get out of our life, professionally, personally, in our relationships, as a spouse or as a parent. And because oftentimes we're charging through life as, business or sales, and, we want to hit the number, we want to grow, we want to make more money, but we are sometimes making decisions based on a faulty set of values as opposed to winning more through a solid set of values.
I love that. I'm going to read that chapter right away. It's something but it's something I always work on. I just recently finished writing a LinkedIn article, which I'm going to show everybody a quick screenshot of, just because I posted it yesterday. I'm moving in on 100 LinkedIn articles. Make sure you follow both of us. If you don't already follow me, Dave Savage on LinkedIn. I invest a lot of time in the posts that I write, and I try to get a post out daily. I try to do a LinkedIn article whenever I have something that I want to say. Like I don't have a goal that it's monthly, it's weekly. It's when I think there's something important. And I do think business planning is important. And I've done a lot of interviews over the past 30 days, and I transcribed them. I created a synopsis around them. And I do think, if you're a mortgage professional, the people that I highlighted and the way we document it, I think this is a super valuable resource for you. But I also recommend you read that chapter of the book. And I know I'm going to read it. Here's a LinkedIn article that I'm working on. I don't know when I'm going to release it, but one of the most valuable things as I was doing my, I'll like next week, the week between Christmas and Thanksgiving, or Christmas and New Year's, I'll crush my business planning and my life planning goals. But right now I'm kind of doing my homework on it, and I'm reading past things that I did. And one of the most valuable things I've ever done in life planning is I created a document with my wife 20 years ago. Our oldest is 21. We became an empty nester this year. And we created a document together that is called the Savage Family Mission and Values. And I'm gonna do a post on it. I might even do a LinkedIn article on it. But we defined what integrity is. Like for our family, it could be a lot of things. Yeah, we didn't say it's honesty. We just said do what is right and do what we say we're going to do. Like that's the Savage family definition of integrity.
And I love that, because those are what I define as supporting behaviors. Because you can say, well, it means honesty, it means this, or a slew of other cliche things. But what are in very simple terms, what are the behaviors that want to identify as it relates to integrity for the Savage family? I love that.
Yeah, and I would push everybody, if you've got kids, and our goal was, one, we're different. We're very different. Like I'm a wolf, like the kids are having adversity and I'm like, yeah. And my wife was like, oh, so like we're different, and we want to do a line on some things that we could build a culture around. Hard work is one of those things. We respect hard work and best effort. and we show that by example, and we have a heart that goes the extra mile. Those are like just two things we both aligned on. So I would push everybody to listen to this, read the chapter in this book, work on your family values, align with your spouse on what's our family mission, what's our family values, and use this book as a tool to fine tune what you're doing. Because that's another thing. Like I didn't think about embracing the suck, and I am really proud of my kids. I've got two amazing kids that when I read our Savage Family Mission values, I'm like, we embrace this stuff. Like we're not perfect, you know, we step in dog shit and we don't eat our own dog food sometimes, but we eat our dog food a lot. We embrace these values, and I would just push everybody to do that. So anything else on that before I ask another question? We've got about 15 minutes, so this might end up being the last question. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think we covered it well. I love that you expanded on the fact that you actually have that set for your family, a mission statement and a values statement, a manifesto, so to speak, and you guys refer back to it. The most important thing is that you actually use it, you storytell around it, you refer back to it with the wins and losses, because a lot of times, you know, individuals or teams will create that amazing thing and they'll get buy-in from everybody, and then they never refer to it ever again. It lives on a website or on the wall, and we don't use it to say, hey, let's celebrate this win. But let's refer back to our values, our mission and vision statement to see how that associates with what we just achieved.
And I would say we could have definitely done that better. Like we had a plan that we were going to pay an artist to put it in the house, and you know, we never executed on that. There's never been a year where we haven't referenced it, talked about it. But you know, there's been years where we talked about it every month and it was a real thing. And then there's been years where at the end of the year, Dad's just preaching to everybody. You know, so we could have executed that better. So let's, I don't know if this will be the last question. Remember, community, if you have questions, put them down below. But I love this one: modeling mindset and behavior for violent execution. Again, my last name's Savage, so I like that. Get after it. I noticed you put a Tony Robbins quote to kick it off. The path to success is taking massive action, determined action. So what's in that chapter, and what do you think a professional loan officer can pull from that right now?
That chapter really starts to tie everything together because the premise of the book is not just about overcoming adversity, but about achieving more of the goals we set to live a more fulfilling, meaningful life, whatever that definition is to each of us. And each chapter has what I refer to as a mental model. When kind of diving into the realm of self-improvement, self-help books, when preparing for this book, I had never read a real self-help book before. So what I found out there was a lot of, some obviously good books, and it's a very popular genre. So a lot of these books have done extremely well, but very few of them that I found actually give you tools to use or a framework or a model to actually execute. So the mental model in that chapter is really around a results pyramid that I share, which has 5 tiers. So an individual or team has 2 types of results. You have your existing results, whatever you're currently achieving in life and work. And then more importantly, we have our desired results, the loftier goals that we want to achieve or should be pursuing. And that's the first tier in that pyramid. The second tier are the actions. What are the actions associated with the achievement of that results that I either need to execute or develop as part of my plan? So that's where you plug in the planning and execution model in that second tier for the actions. The next tier are the beliefs. So basically going back to the core values, you define your core values, your supporting behaviors, your accountability mechanisms, those guiding principles. That's the third tier. And those guiding principles in a perfect world, like we talked about, should be not just authentically embodied, but used to help proactively drive us to take the necessary actions to achieve that desired outcome. And then the fourth tier is purpose, plugging in your defined why. Now be careful with that because a lot of, especially some of the younger generations are like, we gotta define my purpose. I gotta, find my meaning in life. And they sit around far too long trying to ruminate on what their purpose is, and they haven't achieved anything. And a year has gone by or 2 years has gone by, and they haven't actually gotten out there and pursued a path. I think that obviously hard work breeds opportunity. We're not always going to know exactly what that purpose is, but your purpose is more likely to reveal itself to you through hard work and sweating more in training, so you bleed less on the battlefield. And then the bottom tier are the rituals. So what sort of rituals or cultural experiences do we either need to have or create to help support those beliefs? So for example, with the Savage family, vision and values manifesto, so to speak, what based on those values, what sort of rituals do we have or need to create within our family to help reignite and remind us of what the purpose is, what those beliefs mean, and what actions we need to take to achieve a desired outcome based on the goals we have set.
Wow. Well, I know what I'm reading this weekend. I love that. This is going to be a great fine tuning as everybody on this call, you get clear on your goals, you get clear on the strategies. But at the end of the day, it's the values that do it. And there are things that you haven't executed on. Last year, what were the things that you executed on? I love how you take it all the way down to rituals, because we all know, like, we get to pick our habits, but then our habits pick our life. And that's, you could replace rituals with habits there. I'm showing you guys a screenshot of an excerpt from the book. Someone asked, what book are we talking about? And we are talking about Embrace the Suck. Sounds like a must read for everybody in the mortgage industry. Heck, in today's COVID times, it's probably a must read for everybody in America. Let's quit worrying about when we get to the other end of this. Because guys, even when, whatever the post-COVID era is, there are things that have changed forever. Working out of your home, whether you are doing it yourself or whether you're selling to people that work in your home, that's not going to go back to where it was. Yeah, there will be offices, there will be face-to-face meetings, but there's going to be more people working out of their homes. I mean, there's going to be trends, Zoom, showing up on video, showing up professionally, showing up on brand, showing up in a way that you're not just talking to people, but you're influencing people. These are skill sets that you need to embrace, because there is a new norm. Being a modern loan officer, if you're on this call and you're not doing video, you don't have an intentional social media presence, you're not using technology to deliver advice, not price. If you're not using technology so that you can keep promise at scale, AKA CRM, you're not going to kill it in the future. I'm not here to say you're dead, but I am here to say loan officers that do everything I just said, they're going to gain market share. They're going to thrive. And they are. The results are showing it. There's never been more loan officers that have closed over 100 loans a year. There's never been more loan officers that have done 100 million. But you know what? When you look at the number of loan officers that are doing less than 30 and 50 loans a year, it's still over 100, almost 200,000 loan officers. So a lot of loan officers are not becoming as wealthy because they're not embracing the suck to learn new habits, learn new skills. So we are down to the final stretch. Knowing that you've got the audience of some of America's best loan officers, leaders, a lot of servant leaders, any last words of wisdom as an author and just a father, and a guy who's getting after it? Any last words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it, but I think now more than ever, it's just about staying the course, getting back to an extreme focus on what we can use, what's in our control, what's in our sphere of influence, and not ignoring the rest, but deprioritizing the rest, so we still maintain situational awareness, whether that be in our personal life or in our business, but then just continuing to develop our adaptive mindset through intentional practice. Do the things that suck, that make you uncomfortable, that are critical for personal and professional growth and development. Stay healthy, both mind and body. A lot of us, people are struggling with mental health or depression or anxiety. Focus on those things. Make time for wellness activities. Keep cleaning. Get good sleep. Spend time with the family. But again, when it gets back to work and career, have a good plan, execute that plan, engage in mentorship if needed, and adapt and course correct as needed. Just keep moving forward.
So I have a couple little just quick hit conversations. When I talk to people that are leaders, and someone like you that's growing leadership, I mean, how do you define leadership? What is leadership to you?
Leadership to me really is, one of the, core foundations of leadership is, one, obviously being, having high levels of personal accountability and ownership, pushing the wins to the team and taking total ownership over the catastrophic failures or losses. So discipline around accountability, but also your goal as a leader is to engage people and emotionally connect them to the mission of what the team is trying to accomplish. There can't be leadership without a team. But again, everybody in all aspects of life, we all have opportunities to lead, whether that be as a parent, as a spouse, in a nonprofit, leading yourself, or leading a team within business. We can't lead others until we can properly lead ourselves. So being a lifelong learner, being in a constant state of transformation and improvement, that's leadership, because it's really our job as leaders to not just lead people, but to develop other leaders. I mean, that's the foundation of high performance, where everybody on the team thinks and behaves as a leader.
Love it. Love it. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. Remind folks where they should best connect with you on social media. Where are the different places they can buy your books? And if they did want to buy a case of books to give them out to their realtors, what would be the best way to do it?
Social media wise, I am on Instagram. I was told earlier this year that if I need to be anybody, I have to be on Instagram. My wife told me that. But, so I'm on Instagram, Brent_Gleeson. Professionally, I'm on LinkedIn, of course. And our company website is takingpointleadership.com. The book is available today on all retailers online, Amazon, of course, and obviously in some brick and mortar bookstores as well across the nation. So that's where people can find me. Connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Instagram, and you'll be able to have access to more of my content from my leadership column. You can also look that up by just Googling Brent Gleeson Forbes, and you'll find hundreds of articles over the past 7 years.
If someone did want to buy a case, just buy it on Amazon, or are there any ways to get a deal, get a case of signed books?
If you want to buy in bulk, then connect with me, for example, on LinkedIn, send me a direct message. I have been checking those, and we'll connect you with our bookseller, which is called Porchlight, and formerly CEO Reads. And they can, it's an easier path, because sometimes Amazon limits how many you can buy at one time.
Yeah, no, I get it. And if they wanted to get that, and then we have a lot of people that do sales rallies and doing virtual events. If someone wanted to hire you as a speaker, which I would love to see you on a lot of mortgage stages, just reach out on LinkedIn, or go to your website. What's the best way to hire you as a speaker?
Yeah, I just did a big mortgage event last week. We talked a lot about the things we just talked about. And the company website is the best, because it has all of our services and case studies, and obviously contact forms where you can fill that out with a name, company name, potential date for your event, and just more details on what you're looking for. So takingpointleadership.com. Awesome. Yeah.
Well, Brent, thank you for your service. Thank you for the time you spent to give your advice, your leadership to the mortgage industry. Everybody who's listened to this, I hope you have an amazing Christmas, however you celebrate the holiday. Have an amazing holiday. We will not be doing a call this Friday, so I don't think I need to say that, but needless to say, it's Christmas. No Friday mastermind this week. We will be back after it next week. So join us, and I wish everybody an amazing holiday. Brett, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to getting to know you better, brother. Take care.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great week. This call's a wrap.